Hello, this is Pete, or Kenshin1913, along with
Mom.
And this is another Cooking with Kenshin1913. What are we making today, Ma?
We're making an Italian cream pie. Normally you'll see people have this kind of dessert closer to the Easter time. You can make it really any time of the year. And the filling, the cream on the inside is, if you've ever gone to a pastry store and gotten the little pies, they come in chocolate and vanilla. The consistency of the cream is that it's more like a custard.
Right, and this is going to be an advanced episode because the cream pretty much is going to be the thing that we're going to have to show you how to do, and it's a little, like I said, a little more advanced than the normal Cooking with Kenshin1913 episode.
But still, if you follow us, you know, all the way through, you'll be able to make your own.
Yeah, so let's get baking.
Okay, we're going to start off with making the crust first, and we're using flour, sugar, margarine, baking powder, eggs, and a little lemon juice.
Right.
Okay, so what I have in here is our margarine and our sugar.
Yeah, all the ingredients will be on the video description. So yeah, we're just going to cream that. Then we got to throw in the eggs a little bit.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is to beat up our 3 eggs.
Yeah, 3 eggs. And yeah, this is for the crust. We'll be doing the filling as well, obviously.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my baking powder into the flour. And it's 3 teaspoons. I think we mentioned this before, but if you don't use your baking powder very often, to use a whole can in a year, replace it, because it's very important that you have fresh.
Right. So now we're going to dump it in a little bit at a time.
You want to start it off slow because you don't want to get a flour bath.
Now, could you use butter for this?
You know, you probably could. This is the recipe that I have had.
Right. And this has been passed down.
This recipe comes down from my grandmother.
Yeah.
So it was a great recipe, and I don't change it.
Right. Now, another thing I want to ask is this a blind bake crust?
No, this again is a crust that we're gonna prepare, put it in our pie shell, and it bakes with the cream inside. I'm just trying to wait until it's got a little bit of bits in the inside. I'm gonna add my lemon juice. This crust also makes a lovely cookie dough crust, because a lot of times when I have a little bit extra left over after making the pie crust, I'll use it and make a few little small cut out cookies. Okay, so this is done, and I just wanted to show you that this dough is not really sticky. Okay, so see, it kind of rolls very easily, doesn't stick back to your fingers, and it should come off of your paddle or your spoon very easily. So that's the consistency that you want. This is a Pyrex plate.
Right.
I just like it in here because of the depth of the
Now, can you use a tin dish if you have it?
Yes, you could use a tin dish. You just want to make sure that it's large enough.
Yeah,
and with this, we're getting into the grooves because this has a little grooved area in it. So, okay. So I'm just kneading it together a little bit.
Yeah, and this is what you're gonna do is pretty much like if I don't know if you watched the ricotta episode, the ricotta pie episode, but my mom's we're gonna lattice the top, which means you're gonna put like little strips of dough on top. So she's gonna break off a small chunk, right? And leave it to the side so that we can make that later. But now we're gonna roll out our dough for the crust.
Usually when I have my rolling out my dough, I usually have a little bit of flour that I put on the side in case I need it if it starts to stick.
Right.
So I put just a little bit down. And those of you who have watched this before, this countertop island is granite. We had gotten it kind of like a Christmas present for Mom this year, and oh my God, I just am in love with it.
Yeah,
because normally when I do my pie crust, any kind of pie crust, I would have to put wax paper, one on the bottom, one on the top, so that it wouldn't stick.
And that's something that you could do in case you don't have, obviously, granite countertop or even a piece of granite that you could do it on. Put a little wax paper and roll it out. Now let me ask you, how thick is this pie crust gonna end up being?
About 1/8 of an inch. You don't want it too thick. And this pie crust is actually a little bit more than what is needed, and that's why I said sometimes I'll make a few cutout cookies with it. So you definitely have enough to make your pie.
And now you have to make sure that you make it to the size of the pie pan, I guess. Like, we'll show you.
Yeah.
I think this one's probably pretty good.
So what you do is you turn your pie plate upside down, and you do that, and you always want it a little bit larger because of course you're going down into the depth of the pie.
Right.
So you want to have some extra.
Right.
And I'm just gonna do like this and cut a little bit of this excess off. And as I said, it will not go to waste. Either I can use it with the extra of the top lattice that I'm going to use.
When you make cookies.
Or I'll do the cookies.
Pretty much if you've ever eaten a, what this pie is going to end up being is if you ever eaten a baguette, it's an Italian cream pastry, or it's called a pasty. I think there's other names for it too.
A pasty.
Yeah.
Or if you go in an Italian bakery and you see the like there's a little thing that looks like a little pie about this big.
Yeah.
They come in vanilla and chocolate.
Right, and so we're doing the vanilla version, and yeah.
So I'm just rolling this out a little bit because as you can see if you can see down here, that's about 1/8 of an inch.
Alright, so let's see if you can get this off.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is
be very careful. Yeah, this one is a little different than the ricotta pie one. It seems like
it's a little more fragile.
Yeah, the dough is a little more fragile, it seems.
We're just gonna pray, or you're gonna hear lots of bad words coming out of my mouth.
Either that, or maybe it's because there's so much butter. Like, what do you think is the difference between this pie?
It might be because of the butter.
Because there's more in here, right? Or more margarine. Or... So what you're gonna do is fold that like a third and a third over, and then a third over, kind of like if you're making some sort of burrito. And then you're gonna want to slowly and gently take it off and put it in the middle, and then unfoil it or unfold it like that. This is a good tip. I've seen people try to like literally take it and fold in half and put it in, and it can be a real bitch.
Okay, and so we still have extra here that we're going to cut off.
Right.
And I'm just going to pat it a little bit to make sure that it's in here correctly. And that there's no holes.
Because you don't want holes. And one thing that you could do, or I'm sure my mom will say it, so I'm not going to bother. But yeah, just any of the excess you can kind of take off and place it where you need it.
Yeah.
There's no pie, none of the crust is going to go to waste. As you can see, she's just cutting off the excess here. And she'll probably use it, we're going to use it as like the outside, like, you know, any spots that might not be as full. Like right over here.
Okay. So now I'm just trying to get it, so I'm crimping it a little bit. You could take a fork and do that as well. As I said, I'm not a fancy pie person, so I know some people, they just make it look absolutely beautiful.
Right.
As long as it tastes good.
And once again,
and it's presentable. Okay, so here we are. Here's the crust. We're gonna get ready. I have my other crust for the top under here, just so that it stays moist. And you can wrap it in saran wrap as well.
Right. So now we're gonna
get ready to do the cream. All right. And you need your
whisk attachment.
Yeah.
But what we have here, we've got flour,
All right,
we got
so
sugar.
we have some flour, we have sugar, we have 6 eggs. We're going to use just the yolks.
Right.
Okay. We have vanilla,
lemon,
and lemon. Those don't go in until after the cake has been, already the cream has been made.
Right.
And then I've had, you put maraschino cherries in. I took them out this morning because they have to get dried, kind of dried out from the liquid. Excuse me, because you don't want it to form water in the pie. But that goes in after as well. And the most important part is milk. You do need to use whole milk with this because of the extra fat that's in the milk. You cannot use low fat or 1% or 2%.
Right.
So we don't usually drink whole milk, but I usually have it around for Stella, and so we're going to be using that today. So one of the things that we're going to do, remember, I said egg yolks, so we're going to save the egg whites. Some people, like one of my aunts, she used to put the whole egg in it, and it does make the cream taste a little different. So we usually just save the whites. With my grandmother, she used to make a couple of pies, so she'd have 12 egg yolks, egg whites left over, and she would make angel food cake afterwards. An easy way also of taking your whites out is just through your hands. It's a natural sieve. We have our eggs in the bowl. We're going to add 3 cups of milk.
Yeah, so this is 6 egg yolks and 3 cups of milk. Now you're probably thinking, holy God, that's a lot of eggs and milk and all that. But you know what? You're only having this once a year. Live it up.
So we're gonna pick this up. We're gonna add our sugar. want to make sure that it's getting all incorporated.
Yeah, so this is like we were saying, this is a traditional thing my great-grandmother used to make all the time. And my mom did it, and it's still delicious. My brother makes it now for his family sometimes.
And then we're going to add our flour.
Right, and now we're going to add flour.
Okay, so this becomes a pudding or a custard.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we're going to use is to do it over a double boiler.
Yeah.
A double boiler is a larger pan with water in it, and then you're putting a smaller pan or a bowl over it, so that it's not cooking directly on the heat, but the hot water is actually cooking the custard.
Right.
Now, one of the things that my grandmother always told me to do is that because we added flour in here, you can see there's little bits, and that would make pockets or, like, you know, something hard inside the custard. So I'm going to get my the top of the double boiler pan, and we're going to strain this through it
through a sieve.
through the sieve. So you have to get a fine, you have to have a fine strainer.
Yeah, and we'll show you that.
Well, so as you can see, this is a very fine strainer, and you can see the bits.
Pouring the cream in there. So now with a spoon, you're just gonna squeeze out the rest of it, right? This is where the recipe gets a little tricky. And I guess I was talking to my mom, even if you use a sifted flour, like you sifted it before you put it in there, you probably still have to do this step because you'd still get the little bit.
Yeah, because you can see the little bits in here, see? So what we're doing...
Because you need the flour as a thickening agent, but you don't need it lumpy.
Right. So that didn't take any time at all.
Right, and then we're done. So now you get all this stuff on the bottom. Pretty much you can't let anything go to waste. Now one thing that we're going to have to do is put this on a double boiler, as my mom said.
Yes, and this is going to give your arm a good workout, because this all is going to have to thicken. This is, see how liquid this is?
Yeah, it's
It's
going to be very
thicken
thick.
to a pudding.
Yeah, so what are we going to have to do here, Ma?
We're calling in our right-hand man.
Yeah. So send in the righty. Oh, and we got our right-hand man here who's going to be doing our stirring.
So here you can see this is one of the pots.
Right, so yeah.
And this double boiler fits on top of it. And remember what I said, if you don't have this, you can use a bigger pot on the bottom and a smaller pot on top, or even a glass bowl. So we're going to turn our gas on, and this has to be stirred continuously, because you do not want it to get overly hot on the bottom of the pan, and then it could ultimately scorch, and you'll have a yucky flavor.
So we're gonna stir it for a bit, right? And then we'll add the, or do you add the vanilla and the lemon at the end?
Once it's all thickened, and then I take a whisk and whisk the flavoring in.
Right. So my dad is pretty much just gonna stir and stir and stir and stir until it starts to get thick, and we'll show you what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, this is by 11-12 minutes into the process of stirring. See, you can see it's starting to thicken. It's nice liquid anymore.
Right.
And
just gotta keep stirring.
you just gotta keep on going.
Yep.
Even if your arm hurts, you gotta keep on going.
Now switch it to the other one. All right. So we're pretty close to the end.
See, it's almost all thickened up.
Right.
A few more minutes, and the process was big done.
All right, pretty much. What is that? 15 minutes or so.
See,
And it only takes.
it's all done.
Yeah. Pretty much that's the consistency you want it.
And then you use some. You gotta add a few more things in it, and it's ready.
Thank you, Righty. All right, our closer finished up.
Okay.
What do you got to do?
So my righty kept turning the pudding.
The cream.
We're going to add a nice heaping teaspoon of vanilla.
Yeah, you want to do this now rather than when it's cooking. I'm not 100% sure why.
Well, what happens is the heat. You know, vanilla is liquor. It's and it'll melt off, which you don't want to happen.
Right. So now you're just whisking it in by hand.
We're whisking this in. And then we're going to take 3/4 of a teaspoon of lemon extract. And it's a pure lemon extract. I use all of my flavorings pure.
Why? What's the other?
I'm not sure. Sometimes you don't get the...
Yeah, this cream by itself is like the bomb.
Yeah, you could use it in other things.
Right, but yeah, this is the best. I remember my brother. This is hands down one of his favorite desserts of all time. So whenever my mom would make it, he would have to be the guy
who mixed it. Yeah, because my arm would fall off.
That was their deal. But
and he would always tell me, "Are you making it?
Yeah.
Are you making 1 pie, 2 pies, 3 pies?"
Yeah, he would be like, let's make 2 pies, and my mom's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's crazy. Now that he's got his own family, he pretty much makes it himself. But this video might help him if he forgets.
And some people don't even make this crust. I think that having the specialty crust on both the ricotta pie and the cream pie is half of the taste. But some people will just put it in a regular crust.
Right. So now what we want to do, while that's kind of cooling a little bit, we want to take our egg. We pretty much took an egg, added a little bit of water, and beat it up for an egg wash.
And why we're putting this is like a barrier, so it will not let the crust become soggy.
Yeah. And you don't need to blind bake this, and you don't need to put holes in it, right?
No.
So one thing you want to do is preheat your oven, right? Get your oven preheated.
Yes, to 350.
To 350.
Okay, so
now we gotta make our lattice.
I am going to put this to the side.
Now we're gonna make our lattices. That'll go on top of. That will go on top of the pie. So pretty much what lattices are is they are pretty much like little strips, little doughy strips that go on top of the pie, pretty much, and they go crisscross. So what we're gonna do is pretty much we're just gonna do the same thing we kind of did with the crust, where we're just gonna roll it out until we get something around the same size as the pie crust.
So we rolled out our dough. This is a little gadget that people use when they're making pies. You have a wheel and it makes like a design, or you have the back end that could make also a different design. And this here is similar to people just using a fork to go around.
Right.
Okay, so as you can see.
Yeah, pretty much lattices. You kind of
see, it makes a little strip. You could, make these as big as you want. So we're gonna save all of this because remember, I'm gonna make I have some extra, and I'm gonna make some cookies. So I'm just gonna give it a quick mix.
Because you don't want that skin on the top.
That's when it starts to cool down.
Right. And now it is kind of cool. I mean, it's not really. It's not really that.
It's not
cool.
boiling.
Yeah, it's not boiling because you don't want to put this in there and then that egg wash you got in there, freaking
cooks.
Yeah, you don't want that. Now, one thing here, another one of my brother's favorite things was on the end of the bowl.
Yes.
And he would lick the bowl, Same thing with the
pan and the spoon.
Yeah, the spoon and all that. He'd be all up on that. See? That's some goodness right there.
Look how beautiful.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. And we'll leave it for someone. Probably myself.
Someone
Or-
will eat it.
Or
Now-
the righty.
What I do with my Italian cream pie, and you don't have to do this,
Yeah, this
is
is
remember the maraschino cherries. So what I do is they're kind of dried out, and I take it and I push it in about every. It's almost like every slice that you would make, so that you have a piece of the cherry in it.
Now, my brother, once again, because this is his favorite thing, he's not the
He
biggest
doesn't
fan of
care
cherries.
for them, but he doesn't complain when
Yeah.
when
He'll
I
just
put
take
them
them out
in.
and give them any. Because actually, cherries are one of my favorite things. One of my favorite vegetables, fruits. So.
And this is totally optional. You do not
Right.
have to have this in here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another pie. Once it's done, you really can't eat it right away because it has to cool down.
Right.
It has to go into the refrigerator.
Yeah, pretty much has to chill.
So I usually kind of start here in the middle and get the longer ones. Here is our pie, and what I'm going to do is to take a little bit of that egg wash again and just go around.
Anyways, once again, if you haven't preheated your oven, make sure it's preheated at 350 degrees. We're gonna throw that in there for about 50 minutes, maybe a little longer. We'll have to, we'll figure it out, because with the ricotta pie it took a little longer too. I don't know if it's because of the oven or whatever. But anyways,
Okay, and we're going to. You can buy pie guards that are metal and they go around. And the reason for that is you don't want the outside to cook too quickly before the inside is done, or brown too quickly on the outside before the inside is done. So I just make my own. I cut 3 pieces of aluminum foil.
right. You know, I always thought that. I honestly always thought that you put it in there so in case of spillage.
No, that's why I put it on a heavy cookie sheet. And you want a heavier cookie sheet because you don't want one of the thinner ones that,
So
you know,
that'll
sometimes
warp.
when it
It
gets
might
hot,
warp.
it kind of will warp a little bit, and you don't, because you don't want your pie to be tilted to
Right,
one
yeah.
side.
Yeah, now we're gonna throw this in a 350 degree oven for, once again, about 50 minutes. It might be a little longer. We'll let you know when we're done with the whole thing. And also, about like 10-15 minutes before the whole thing's done, you're gonna want to take the foil off so that you can let the crust cook as even as the rest of the pie.
Oh, today this is giving me a pain staying.
Yeah.
Okay, there we
Alright.
are. We're gonna put this in the oven. Okay, here we are. This is the final pie. Just took it out of the oven.
Yeah.
This one here doesn't puff up a lot, but it does puff a little bit because, you know, before it was a little flatter when we had the top of the crust on. And it's very warm, so this has to get to room temperature and then go in the refrigerator
Right, that's good.
before you can cut it.
Yeah, you gotta refrigerate at least a couple hours.
Several hours until it's cold.
Right, and one other thing is this took about a little over an hour rather than 50 minutes. So yeah, you just want to take it out when it looks like that.
Yeah, you know, our temperature may be a little off somebody else's. That's why you gotta watch, you know, put it on for the amount of time that we normally say that it should be on, and then
Just keep an eye on it.
just
after
keep an
that.
eye on it. It may cook a little bit faster in your oven or a little bit slower.
Right, and we took the tin foil off about 15 minutes before it was done. So there you go. All right, we'll eat it when we get back.
Okay, here we are. It's a day later, almost 24 hours, and it's cooled down. It was in the refrigerator all night, and we're ready to cut it.
Yeah. So as we say, the first piece is always the toughest piece.
To get out of the pie.
Yeah. And we got Stella here.
We gotta go wash our hands. We gotta wash our hands. Stella, we gotta wash our hands. Come on, we gotta go wash our hands.
All right, here we go. Let's take out the pie.
Come on.
Let's see.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like we got it. Yeah, look at that. Now the little redness there is the cherries. So there we go. Let's have some. All right, so here is our Italian cream pie. As you can see, there's the cherries and the cream and the crust.
And that's the whole one.
So I'm going to take a bite because it's good. That is some good cream. It's the best. It just takes some time, but damn is it good. It's rich and it's very lemony. I like that. I never noticed the lemon until now. But yeah, it's very good. I don't really have any other words to describe it because it's just damn good. And I hope that you guys get a chance to make it yourself. So, I've been Pete, or Kenshin1913, along with
Mom,
and this has been another Cooking with Kenshin1913.
enjoy and happy eating.